let me just say, I can't tell you how many times I cried watching you play. You were tremendous, tremendous. And to my wife, Dottie, and my daughters, Karen and Kathy, who are here tonight, who gave up so much of their father time for this game, I hope tonight maybe they realize that it was maybe worth it. And I want to say to all the players who I stood on the shoulders of, a big thank you, because all of you in this room that are coaches understand you can't be anything without them. So I guess tonight my little acceptance talk, and it won't be as long as John Kowalski's, so relax. My little acceptance speech is maybe going to be a little bit of a history lesson, because I sat on the front row for the past 60 years watching this game grow. And grow it did, and not as fast as we'd all like, but it did grow. And we should all be very proud of our accomplishments during that time. Since I was trained as an educator, I want to tell you that if you read the recent article in Soccer America, the very first organized soccer game I was allowed to see in my lifetime was the one I played in my junior year. Can you imagine that? That's what it was like. That's how important soccer was in the 50s. And I went to college because of the game, and frankly, it changed my life. I had a mentor, a college coach. All of you probably know him, the old timers know John Eiler. And one night after practice, he walked over to me and put his arm around me and pulled me off to the side. And he said, "Al Miller, you're the greatest leader I've ever worked with. Now you talk about inspiring a young man for a lifetime with one statement. It happened to me." He gave me a belief for me to go on. The college prepared me to be a teacher coach. And I got my first job, and it was the perfect job for a new coach. 2 years program, never won a game. The closest game they ever had was 5-0. So I had no way to go but up. I think we won 3 or 4 games that first season. And then I worked for the admissions office. We brought in 18 players that first year. And I told everybody we're going to be national champions. In the second year, I brought about 10 more in. A couple of them are in this room tonight. And I want to tell you about one of them. Those of you who are coaches know that there are certain people in a team that resonate greatness like Michelle. I had one of those. There was a young boy standing on the sideline. I played for a German team, an amateur club. I walked over because I was captain of the team, and I put my arm around him and I said, "Are you a player?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you want to train with us?" He looked at me like a deer in the headlights. I said, "Sure." He came and trained with us. After about 5 minutes, I decided he was going to be my next college student. So after practice, I told him, I said, "I'd like you to come to college." Now you talk about shock. This is a young immigrant boy that just came over from Italy, and his full-time job is washing pots and pans in an Italian restaurant. Okay? Not only did he come to school, was our leading scorer for 4 years, I told everybody that we had to believe this was our mission. We were going to be national champions. Back then, in the 50s, there was a national championship called the Atlantic Coast Regional Tournament. It was from Maine to Florida, all the schools on the East Coast. We get picked in it in 1963. We go to the finals and lose. At halftime, this gentleman walks in and said, "John Kennedy, our president, has been killed." We all went into shock. We were at Tufts University in Boston, Massachusetts when it happened. We lost that game. None of us wanted to finish it, but the bigger heads prevailed, and we plodded through the game. We ended up losing 1-0. 2 years later, we came back. The semifinals, we win 3-2. The finals, we win 4-3. This young man scored all 7 goals, okay? I want him to stand up. He's here tonight, flew in special, Gino Ventriglia. I just discovered that he sold his beater car for $600 so he could pay his fees for his freshman year. I just learned that this week. And there's another young man in the audience from that New Paltz team, and I appointed him to kind of tutor Gino and watch after him because he was an emotional Italian, you know. And he was a young Jewish boy from Long Island, and his name is Dan Zipkin, and this guy has kept our team together for 50 years. We've had reunions after reunions, and he's kept it together. So, Danny, thank you. I've had the good fortune to go to Hartwick College, which already was established as a soccer school. Great facilities, 1,500 students, an athletic director who was MVP of the National League in 1950, Jim Constanti, and he and I clicked. I told him I wanted to build the greatest program in America, and he said, I'll help you. And all of a sudden, we started coming up with a lot of innovative things. Every year, the freshman class, when they came in, they got introduced to the team during orientation week. I made the team sound like Barcelona, and we started getting big crowds. We got the townspeople involved. We got the newspaper and the local radio station involved, and we had a lot of firsts there. And one of the firsts was starting a lot of the indoor tournaments that became big. We outgrew basketball back in those days. And a couple of those guys are here tonight, but there's probably 5 famous people that came out of that program of mine, and they have made me so proud. I'm going to name them. Alec Papadakis, currently the CEO and owner of the USL, and what a job he's done with it. Okay, Tom Meredith, probably the best game organizer in America. Terry Fisher, coaching career, pro, college, my assistant up in Calgary. What a trip we had to Calgary, Canada. And then now fighting for youth soccer with the Washington State Association. Brilliant young man, still brilliant today. And then, of course, the legendary Francisco Marcos. How could you not know something about him? Name me somebody in America that sold over 150 professional soccer franchises. He did it. He had a dream. He believed in the game so strongly. It was his passion to make a dent in American soccer. 150 franchises. He created what's now called the USL. And then along came another young man by the name of Eddie Austin. He was the player of the year in New Jersey. And when I got him, my pipeline in New Jersey was open. Eddie, thank you so much. You were a great goal scorer, a great player with Alec Papadakis, who was my leading scorer. He took Gino's place. And Frank Chilemi, who's had such a great career, business career, but was my left back, and here he is tonight. He flew in just special for this. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Now here's my history lesson on Walt and the coaching school. I got selected by the Federation to open a junior Olympic camp up in the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania. We had a beautiful camp. I picked the players from around the East Coast, and I have this elegant program that I laid out for the week. And all of a sudden, John McKeon, who was my administrator, came out in the field and he said, "Oh no, it's going to happen, Al. The Federation is going to send you some German guy." and they want him to be part of the program, and I'm really angry. Because back in those days, we were always being inundated with a lot of phonies. And they came from all over the world, and all they had to do was say they were great coaches, and they believed them. So here I am, this guy shows up, and he gets there just before dinner. So we go to dinner, and John McKeon handed him the program that I had laid out. He looks at it, he's kind of nodding his head, didn't smile, just real stern. And I'm thinking, boy, how the hell am I going to get rid of this guy? And so he looks in the program and he sees that I have a film for the evening. Now, back in those days, you could get a film from the Coaches Association, and it was Pele and Santos, and it was black and white, and you could hardly see the players, but it was the only video you could get or film back in those days. So that's what I'm going to show the kids, because they were like me, they'd never really seen a real game before, or real players. And he asked me, he said, hey Al, he said, I have a film with me, it's called Goal. Would you like to show it? And I said, is it a good one? He said, I think the boys will like it. I said, okay. I'm watching this film, I'm wowed by it, it's amazing. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, but I'm watching it, and guess what? The trainer of the German team is sitting next to me. Detmar Krummer is sitting next to me, and he's in the film. I thought, oh my God, how am I going to apologize to this guy for my anger and how I feel about it? Okay? That was my introduction. My second introduction to Detmar was the first coaching school, Moses Brown School, Providence, Rhode Island. And there we are, that's where I met Walt for the first time, and so many others. And this guy, it was the most profound educational experience I had ever had. We were all in the presence of a genius who gave us an insight into the game we loved. His lectures were spellbinding. And from that, here are some of the sayings, buzzwords that came out of that. Coca-Cola player. It's a guy who passes and drinks a Coca-Cola and forgets to run, right? First class versus economy class pass, okay? He said, one time he said, techniques, tactics, and fitness. That became a buzzword for all of us American coaches. He said, if you run laps, you become a good lap runner, but you don't become a good soccer player. That eliminated lap running in America, okay? So he had a profound impact on us. And then he asked me, he chose me to go on tour with him. And we went across America putting on coaching courses. While we were finishing up in UCLA, we had one left to go. I think it was in Seattle, but I'm 82, so you gotta forgive my memory. But anyway, we're sitting at the hotel after the school, and we were all exhausted after these courses, because it was hard work. And we're sitting having our evening cocktail just before bedtime, and the phone rings. And he's in there in his room talking in German, and I leave and go to bed. 1 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings, and it's Detmar, and he said, you gotta come over right away, Al. I go over to the room, and he said, Al, I'm leaving tomorrow morning. That was Franz Beckenbauer. I must go back. He's asking me to come back to coach Bayern Munich. And so you're gonna take the last school. Good luck. Here's all the papers. I know you can do it. Okay? So that was the end of that summer. And then something great happened for me. I was a type A, still am, and I wanted to coach in the pros. I was loving my gig at Hartwick, but there was this extra step on the ladder, and when you think like I think, you want to get to that step. And I get called from Philadelphia, and I go to an interview. A limo picks me up at the airport. I'm pretty impressed with that. I go to this hotel downtown Philadelphia that was built by the owner, Tom McCloskey. I walk in, and there's a booth in there with his name on it. And they start asking me questions, and Tom asked me this question: why do you think I should hire you? And I said, well, of all the Americans, I think I'm very qualified because I was chosen by this coach, brilliant coach, Detmar Krummer, And I started extolling the virtues of Detmar Kramer. And he stops me and he leans over to his sidekick and he said, "Have we interviewed this German guy?" Obviously, I quickly changed my tactics. And I got back to Hartwick the next morning and got a phone call that night, and he offered me the job in Philadelphia. And the rest is history. It was a dream season. It was an expansion team. It was full of Americans. My two top goal scorers were there on loan agreements, and they were called back 1 week before the final game in Dallas, so I don't have anybody to score goals. I took one of my center backs who hadn't played all year long and play him up front like Michel as a target player, and doesn't he score the second goal? We win 2-0 in Dallas. A dream season end, and I end up being a pick for the coach of the year. So that was my career, and here's how Walt ties into this. After the season, I said to Walt, "Hey, you're not doing anything. You get free tickets. Your wife's an airline steward. How about flying to England with me? I gotta go negotiate to see if I can get these players back. How about you pretend to be my lawyer?" So Walt and I walk into this smoke-filled boardroom, and Walt's all dressed to the nines, and he's got his briefcase. He opens his briefcase, pulls out a yellow legal tab, and pretends to take notes. They're serving Cavassier and cigars, and Walt's enjoying them immensely. And I'm afraid he's gonna fall off the chair before we seal the deal. But we ended up doing it, and Walt and I went out that night and had one of the greatest nights of my life with Walt Chyzowych. And then, of course, as you know, Walt gets appointed as the director of coaching, and what a phenomenal job he did picking a staff and making it all work. And Walt played in the real first indoor game in America, the foundation of indoor soccer. In February, I was appointed the general manager now and president of the Philadelphia Atoms, as well as the coach. And I got a call from an impresario in Portugal, and he says, "Al Miller," he said, "I have a phenomenal idea where you can make a lot of money." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Well, you're the American champions, and I represent the Russian champions. How about we have a game in Philadelphia?" I said, "That would be great, but we have 3 feet of snow here right now. Nobody comes to a soccer game in the middle of the winter." He keeps hounding me for about 3 days. He keeps calling me back. I said, "Hey, how about we play an indoor game?" I sent him the rules, and we had the first indoor game, 14,000 paid at the Spectrum in Philadelphia. And after the game, Earl Foreman and Ed Tepper walk up to me in the dressing room and said to me, "Are you going to continue this game?" And I said, "No, it was just experiment for one night to keep my players happy because they haven't been playing for a long time." And he said, "We're going to start a league." And that's how it all happened. Walt played in that game because, jokingly, I said to him, "You know, Walt, if you're going to be a director of coaches, you need to have professional on your resume. I'm going to assign you to a pro contract for 1 game." That's how I became a pro. Anyway, later I went to Dallas and worked with the infamous Lamar Hunt, probably the most incredible man I've ever been around. When I got there, he was worth $3.5 billion, spelled with a B, $billion. Took me to dinner with the new general manager, and he reached in his pocket and he says, "Hey Dick, do you have any money with you? I don't have anything on me. Can you pay for dinner?" That was Lamar Hunt. Every game, after the game, I got a 3x5 card with this little beautiful printing of his comments about how the team played. Some were compliments, some were not as complimentary, and also about the game operations. He took everything serious. And when he hired me, here's what he said: "I could go buy the world right now for you, and we could win everything, but I'd kill the league doing it." So he said, "All I want you to do is make them competitive and well-disciplined. And I'd like you to work with the community to help grow soccer. I'm happy to tell you that in a workshop that I created, which Walt came out and attended and saw firsthand what we were doing, we did 38,000 coaches, parent coaches, youth coaches that year in the Southwest. 38,000. One night in Tulsa, we had 6,000 show up. It was unbelievable. So anyway, I want to close with these thoughts. If you were wondering what goes into the award that Michelle and I got tonight, this is my answer. I loved so much my career that I was afraid that I might get fired if I didn't do well, and I would lose the love of my life. So I was all in, all the time. Secondly, I learned that championships, trophies, awards, wins are not even close to the relationships that we have had as educators and coaches over the years. Coaching, thirdly, is a severe test because you cannot hide. You're going to suffer when you lose, when you get criticized, because your work is always out in the open for everyone to see. 4, you can make a profound difference in a young person's life. They're listening to every word you say. I got a Christmas card. I cried this year. 57 years ago, I had a player at New Paltz. His name was Hokie Anderson. He went on to become a Marine in Vietnam and survived as a lieutenant leader in the jungles for 3 years. He came back and became a successful coach. I lost track of him. 57 years later, I got a Christmas card. And here's what it said. Do you remember the night I invited you to dinner, Coach? And at dinner I confessed to you that I cheated on an exam. And you looked me in the eye and said, "Are you sorry you did it?" And he said, "I'm ashamed. My mother's a teacher. I'm ashamed. I don't know what to do." And I said, "You've just done it. You're going to be okay, Hokie." 57 years later, he sends me a card to remind me of that incident. That's what happens to coaches like me who are blessed. In America, there is honor in working hard because it's the American dream, and I was the American dreamer. I believe that Walt and I will be remembered for doing good for the game. We did it not for personal reasons. We did it out of love for a simple game that we found when we were a kid. And for those of us that had the privilege of knowing Walt, right now he would say, "You got that right." And then he would look at you with that gap-toothed smile. God is good. I love you, Walt. Thank you.